All right, here we go again. Let's solve this one using matrices, and let's see if we can get to the reduced row echelon form to get our answers. So first, going into that augmented matrix. Again, it's all about those coefficients. Got to make sure that we copy things correctly. All right, so for this system, I kind of want you to focus on this guy right here. The reason being is that you lead off with, well, it's not a 1, but it's a -1. So instead of trying to get a 1 for the lead off guy right here, which we could do, but that just would cause us to have a fraction for the rest of the way, let's swap these two rows. So we're going to put, we're going to swap these guys around, and when we do that, we're going to do negative row 2 and put that into row 1. At the same time, we're going to put row 1 into row 2. So when I do negative that second row, that makes it a +1, -3, +5, and -3. And I'm just putting the second row down, or the first row down into the second row. And this guy down here, we didn't do anything with that. All right, so we have a 1 right here, which is good. And we want to get zeros down here. The way we do that, we're going to do negative row 1 plus row 2 and replace that into row 2. That's going to give us a 0 because -1 times 2, whoops, glad I said that out loud. Sorry, -2 times row 1, add that to row 2. And then we'll also do -4 times row 1 plus row 3 and add that to row 3. Or replace row 3 with that. All right, first row is unchanged. Now, if we've done things correctly, we should have zeros underneath here. So, can you track this in your head? -2 times -3 is 6, plus 1 is 7. -2 times 5 is -10, plus 3 is -7. -2 times -3 is 6, plus 15 is 21. Now we do -4 times row 1 and add that to row 3. So that gives me the 0 at the beginning. -4 times -3 is 12, plus 2 is 14. -4 times 5 is -20, minus 1 is -21. -4 times -3 is 12, plus 2 is 14. All right, now we need to get this guy to be a 1. So we divide everything there by 7. So we're going to take row 2 divided by 7 and replace row 2 with that. Okay, so that gives me 0, 1, -1, 3. Now, I mean, you don't have to do this, but it might make things a little bit easier for you if you also take row 3 and divide that by 7. And it has nothing to do with what you do for the second row. It's just that third row, there's a common factor of 7. So if I reduce it by 7, that's still going to be fine. It just makes my number smaller and easier to work with. So it makes this 0, 2, -3, and 2. I think you would agree that's a little bit nicer, right? All right, so now what I want to do is I want to get a 0 right here. So I'm going to do -2 times row 2, add that to row 3, and replace row 3 by that. Okay, keep on copying. So this guy here does not change. Now, -2 times 1 plus 2 is 0. Negative 2 times negative 1 is 2. Plus negative 3 is negative 1. Negative 2 times 3 is negative 6. Plus 2 is negative 4. And I hope you can see where we want to go from here. We want to make this guy a positive 1. So, yeah, that's just dividing or multiplying everything times negative 1. It's all the same. Doesn't matter which way you say it. So we have 0, 0, 1, and 4. Now, just because I don't want to keep doing this over and over again, getting kind of tired, we could actually stop here if you wanted to. And you could say, from this row right here, that means that z equals 4. Okay. From here, this means that y minus z equals 3. So we have one coordinate. Let's use this guy right here. So that means y minus 4 equals 3, so y equals 7. That is another coordinate for our solution. Well, now that we have both of those, let's use the equation at the top. Right? So that means that we have x minus 3y plus 5z, excuse me, equals negative 3. So x minus 3 times 7 plus 5 times 4 equals negative 3. X minus 21 plus 20 equals negative 3. X minus 1 equals negative 3, so x equals negative 2. All right, so we did back substitution. Once we got to the row echelon form, it gave us the z. We could find the y and find the x. So our ordered triplet is negative 2, 7, 4. Again, plug it in and check. Let's go to our calculator. All right, so I want to edit B. So this is one from a previous video. So 3 and 4 is good. 3 rows, 4 columns. What do we have? Let's go back up here to the top. We can actually just look here, right? So we have 2, 1, 3, 15. Then we have negative 1, 3, negative 5, 3, 4, 2, negative 1, and 2. All right, so let's quit out of this. Now, if you do a lot of these, you can just, if you're doing the same operation over and over again, you don't have to keep going back into the menu. Because if I go up here, I see that I already typed in REF for matrix B. This was a previous problem, so it's a different answer. So if I copy this and I hit enter, it now gives me the new solution because it's from the new current matrix. And you see here that does match up with what we have. Negative 2, 7, and 4. All right, so that checks out. Let's look at the next one. All right, so again, let's take this guy down to the row echelon form, and then we can check our solution from that with a reduced row echelon form in the graphing calculator. Now, you might already see how you might want to rearrange some things here. I'm going to kind of do that right now. I'm just going to go ahead and swap these guys around. The reason for that is because that's a 1. Having a 1 in the leadoff spot is really what you want. So I'm now going to have this as 1, 1, 1, 7. The first row is now my second row, so negative 3, 1, 2, negative 9. Then we have 2, negative 1, negative 2, and 6. All right, let's get to that row echelon form, starting by getting zeros going down here. So we'll do that by doing 3 times row 1 plus row 2, and we'll do negative 2 times row 1 plus row 3. All right. My first row remains unchanged. Now, 3 times 1 plus 3 is 0. 3 times 1 plus 1 is 4. 3 times 1 plus 2 is 5. 3 times 7 plus negative 9. So 21 minus 9 is 12. Now, negative 2 times 1 plus 2 is 0. That was intentional. Negative 2 times 1 plus negative 1 is negative 3. Negative 2 times 1 plus negative 2 is negative 4. Negative 2 times 7, negative 14, plus 6 is negative 8. All right. You know what? I'm going to make my life easy. Now, I've already done this problem, and I'm looking at it going, there are a lot of fractions running around, right? I think I've learned my lesson. I see here now that if I were to combine these guys right there, that gives me a positive 1, which is what I want to have in this spot right there. So why don't I just do that? Let me just combine those guys and say, let's do row 2 plus row 3, and we're going to replace row 2 with that. It'll be a lot easier than dealing with a bunch of fractions, because I've already done all the fraction stuff. All right, so this bottom row I am not changing, but I'm now combining row 2 and row 3 and replacing that with row 2. So 0 plus 0 is 0. Negative 3 plus 4 is 1. I like that. Negative 4 plus 5 is also 1. Okay. Negative 8 plus 12 is 4. All right. I like that a lot better. But now we need that to become a 0. So if I do 3 times row 2 and add that to row 3. So that'd be 3 times 1 plus negative 3 makes that 0. Awesome. All right, these first 2 rows don't change. All right, so 3 times 1 plus negative 3 is 0. 3 times 1, 3, plus negative 4 is negative 1. 3 times 4 is 12, plus negative 8 is 4. And then one last little thing, we kind of get it from here, is we want to multiply that last row times a negative 1. Because we want to make sure that we have just a plain positive 1 in this last entry down here. That then makes that negative 4. Okay, so again, we just did negative row 3 and we replace our 3 with that. This is row echelon form. You've got the 1s there. You have the 0s below it. And from here, let's just pause and say what this means. That means that z equals negative 4. That's what that last row means. You have 0x, 0y, 1z equals negative 4. All right. And then we have this. We have that y plus z equals 4. So it means y minus 4 equals 4. Y equals 8. All right. We're almost there. So we had the one equation that said x plus y plus z equals 7. All right, so that means x plus 8 minus 4 equals 7. So x plus 4 equals 7, which means x equals positive 3. And we've got the ordered triplet. So that's x, y, z. That's 3, 8, negative 4. And again, you don't need a calculator to check your work. You can simply plug in 3, 8, and negative 4 for x, y, and z respectively, and check to make sure that that all works out in your original equations. It really shouldn't take that long. All right, so let's go back over here to our matrix. edit, matrix B, 3 by 4 is still good. We have, let's go to the original one, -3 plus 1, 2, -9. Then we have 1, 1, 1, 7, 2x, -1y, minus 2z equals 6. All right, we quit out of this. We do second entry, just it's got to grab the last entry that we typed. And now it tells me this, 3, 8, -4. And what did we have? 3, 8, -4. There you go. I think that's pretty cool. All right, now the next problem, just to warn you, may not be as easy. But again, we follow the process. And as long as we follow the process, we're going to be okay.